Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FreeSpace Now. I'm your host, John Willis, and today we have a very special guest, the one and only Carl Higbie, Newsmax host, former Navy SEAL, and certified BA from Connecticut. So, Carl, how's it going today, bud?
I'm gonna have you cash that check I just put in the mail for that intro.
Sweet. Do I have to wait 2 weeks before I cash it? Or
No, you're good. You can go now.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being here today. So I've had the opportunity to appear on Carl's show on Newsmax or any show that he's been hosting. You're kind of like the designated hitter or utility infielder for Newsmax lately, right?
Well, someone over there determined that I don't suck bad enough to replace people when they're out sick.
Yeah. So that's good.
Works for me.
Yeah. You got that going for you, which is nice. So, but yeah, in fact, I think I'll be on Newsmax tonight and then tomorrow. I don't know if you're hosting either of those shows, but yeah, I'll be on like 9 to 10 Eastern tonight. I don't know whose show that is, and then tomorrow afternoon, I think I'm on Salcedo's show tomorrow. So
good deal.
Yeah, so should
rock on, man. I will not be there, but Godspeed.
Be there in spirit. Yeah, we'll be thinking about you.
I will
wear a yellow tie just for you.
Oh, I was hoping tie.
Yeah, there you go. So some fun stuff going on in the news today. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a gander of what's going on in the world, but
yep.
AP just came out with a story entitled "Under Pressure to Ease Up, Biden Weighs a New Virus Response." Facing growing pressure to ease up on pandemic restrictions, the White House insisted Wednesday it is making plans for a less disruptive phase of the national virus response. But impatient states, including Democratic New York, made it clear they aren't waiting for Washington as public frustration grows. So you live up in the Northeast. I'm in the Southwest, where we actually have something called constitutional freedom down here. So what's it like living up there with all those restrictions up there in Connecticut, New York, all that stuff?
Well, I basically just didn't comply for, I don't know, the entire time. Like there was, hey, put this mask on. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. And I was like, nah, I'm good. So it didn't really affect me. I also didn't get COVID until I was around a nurse wearing an N95 mask outside. And then I got COVID from her. But, the big thing now is the science hasn't changed. The science hasn't changed, I don't know, at all. But yet they're reversing these policies, and it really bugs me. Hey, let me grab a drink of water real quick.
Yeah, do your thing.
But yeah, so I've been flying for the last 3 days, and I had food poisoning on Monday, so that was great.
Weren't you in Vegas on Monday or Tuesday?
Yes, I was. I was out there. Excuse me. I was out there for some business meetings. We went out to dinner, and I ate the shrimp cocktail, and I was like, I'm telling you, man, like I was done. I was done training.
Man, oh man.
So in any event, I was, what I was saying is the science didn't change. They just, the polling changed, and they're seeing like parents getting up at these school board meetings being like, dude, this doesn't work anymore. And time again, it's just not working. So it's kind of where we're at.
Well, there's been several videos of you, including a few that have gone viral, of you going after your school boards you're in Greenwich, right?
Yeah. The problem is they don't listen unless you get loud enough. And now there's a large contingent of parents they've quite frankly just had it. And we've said this time and time again. It's like, guys, like, we're not your enemy. We're the stewards of our children, and our kids are not subjects. They're humans, and adults have no restrictions. We can go into restaurants and bars and go out in public and all that, but the only people still restricted are the people that don't actually have any real problem with this virus, and yet they're the ones being locked down and eaten outside and sitting with it's just garbage to me, man.
Yeah, I mean, become a student of politics, I'm able to see kind of what's really going on. I think you are as well, where they keep quoting what we call the science, trust the science.
Yeah,
they really need to stop saying the science and just say our science. trust our science,
Mhm.
our science, because what
Yeah.
we believe is correct. And if you don't
Yeah.
adhere to what we believe, you're the one that's pushing out false, fake news, or
Right.
misinformation. That's the new word that they keep using, misinformation.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know what's interesting? I want to talk about the science, and I want to talk about science, our science, whatever it is, um, which is, masks. There is not a single study in. I shouldn't say it just didn't happen. There's no study that can show that the mask mandates or the implementation of mass masking did anything. You can go back to all 50 states, and there is zero impact on the bell curve of when a mandate was imposed. Now you can go do the research yourself that had any negative decline. There are states where it declined after it, but it was already on the decline before it. There's the states where it went up after. And so the real issue is the entire time we were told that, oh, masks work based on what? Oh, the science, our science, which was they took a mannequin, they sprayed it in the face with particles in a vacuum, and oh, look, the mask stopped X amount of particles. Well, that's not how we wear masks in public. We stuff them in our pocket, we leave them on the table, we touch them, we fidget with them, we bring them home, we use the same one for 3 days in a row. We're not in a lab. We're not trained medical professionals that do this and throw the thing out after 3 hours of use and get a new, like, this is not the reality of it. So masks, chuck it out the door. It doesn't work. The vaccine, like, and this is like still unpopular. I mean, it's like all the things that we were called conspiracy theorists for, John, we were are now coming true.
yeah,
Joe Rogan's basically been the litmus test of that.
correct.
But vaccines, Israel, super high vaccination rate, up in the 90s of single shot. I think it's like touching 80 of double shot and 70s of boosted. Okay. So super high vaccination rate. To date, they have a 0.078% death rate from COVID. Not of COVID, from COVID. That's what they're saying. Okay, the surrounding Palestinian authorities, okay, that area, largely the same temperature, same environmental, same demographics, same genetic pool. I mean, they've been in the area together, living under similar conditions, only they have far less attention to medical facilities and things like that than Israel does. They have a 16% vaccination rate, and guess what their death rate is?
Way lower.
0.078.
Yeah. Oh, it's
No,
the
it's
same.
it's the exact
Oh,
same.
okay, yeah.
So vaccines literally had no effect on a society with less with less access to medical care, with lower standard of health, with the same, all the other variables are the exact same. So this is the first real world study among millions of people that actually says, like, guys, maybe like what we did had no effect on this. And when they're saying like, oh, the people in the hospitals now are unvaccinated, that's just not true. There, it's actually shown too that healthier people were the ones to get vaccinated in the first place. So it would make sense that healthier people wouldn't get COVID. Now, that or be as affected by COVID. Now, that's to say, there's plenty of places like England right now. More people, very high vaccination rates. Most people in that country are in hospitals are people that have been vaccinated. So what the hell are we
Yeah.
doing here?
Yeah, it's so weird what's going on, because for me, is COVID real? Of course, yeah. I mean, is it as bad as they
Sure.
say? No. I mean, the death rates
No.
would prove it such. I mean, that's why they switched the narrative about a year ago from focusing so much on the death rate and went to case rates. How many cases are breaking
Right.
down. And
Which
that's a
in
massive
what
difference.
in what world? Yeah. But in what world do we measure like, oh, there were this many flu cases? No, there were this many serious flu cases. Like, I mean, if you break this whole thing down, sorry to interrupt, but if you break this whole thing down, you have, and I get so furious about this. The if you take away, which is now the left is now saying, like, we need to examine who died of COVID, not with COVID. You break that down, there's only about 30,000 COVID deaths now, as of today, total. I'm not talking per year. I'm talking total. 30,000 people died solely of COVID. Well, in 2018 to 2019 flu season, 80,000 people died of the flu.
And what's interesting is you usually don't die of COVID. You usually die of the pneumonia, that follows the
Right.
COVID, or any other comorbidity that you are dealing with, whether you're fat or you have diabetes or whatever it may be. Usually that amplifies what's going on. But it's
Right.
to me, what I've noticed is I think one of the main things that's come from the past 2 years of COVID is now our complete distrust of the entire medical and
Mhm.
pharmaceutical industries. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So I've had one family member pass away of COVID, my uncle, and my grandpa. We
Mhm.
almost lost him yesterday. He's in the hospital right
Mhm.
now, but he's recovering from COVID. He's got pneumonia now, and he may actually pull through it. Man, toughest 92-year-old on the planet. But what's interesting is how quickly primary care physicians, once you are diagnosed with COVID, they immediately wash their hands of you and they say, just go to the hospital. Well, you go to the hospital,
Right.
and 9 times out of 10, if you have COVID, that's a death sentence when you go into the hospital because they're going to put you on that remdesivir and put you on a ventilator if your O2 drops below 88 or 87 or whatever it is.
Right.
And the likelihood of you coming off that ventilator is and surviving is very,
Low.
very low. It's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
so, they're not treating the actual COVID. They're usually treating the other things that are wrong. They don't actually treat like, hey, we know that ivermectin is a great delivery tool, or same with hydroxychloroquine is a great delivery tool for zinc to get to the virus. Because zinc
Mhm.
kills it, but you need that delivery tool
Right.
through your blood system in order to get the zinc to it, and that's what hydroxychloroquine does. Well, the government
Right.
has done everything they could to stop it and to stifle any type of true treatment for these people that have it, and they restrict these hospitals on what type of treatments that they can give people. And to
Mm.
me, it really does show just how bad electronic medical records. Sorry, a little brain freeze there. The EMR records that we all were forced to go on when Obamacare was passed back in, what was that, 2009,
Mm.
2010. And
Yeah.
so now they have all of our records digitally, but because of that legislation that was passed 12 years ago, now the government's calling the shots. And now it's the government that's
Right.
deciding what type of care you can get, and,
And
and not your
what
doctor.
could possibly go wrong
I
with
don't know.
that?
They're so good at everything they do. I mean, everything they touch just turns to pure platinum. So,
DMV, the VA, the I-5 traffic in LA. I mean,
oh yeah.
rock
Oh
stars.
my gosh. Yeah. But they're really good at spending. They've got that under control, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you look at this whole mistrust or distrust of the medical and pharmaceutical systems
Mhm.
now, whereas before, like for me, I've always been like, yeah, I'll get my kids vaccinated, no big deal. Not with the COVID vaccine, but just like regular vaccines, like mumps, measles, all that stuff. Chicken
Right. Right.
pox. But now when I see this, where their government is doing everything they possibly can to force you to get vaccinated, they're bribing people, they're offering
Mm.
them, monetary incentives, whatever it is, and now they're threatening,
Whatever.
we'll send you to an internment camp, like you're seeing what's going on in Australia. There's something else going
Yeah.
on. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that something else is going on here, that they are so hell bent on getting us to take a vaccine that has been proven
Mhm.
not to work. So I don't know.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, the other thing too is like they pushed so hard for this vaccine, but then they turned around and said that, I mean, the whole thing, and Leanna Wen said this on CNN back in the day, where it's like, we have to keep the mask mandate because then there's no incentive for people to get the vaccine if we lift it. So that was the incentive, was like, get the vaccine, we'll go back to normal. So like 80% of Americans got this vaccine, or at least one dose of it, or 70, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
It's up there. And then they said, "Oh, you know what? Actually, sorry guys, we're actually not going to go back to normal." I mean, when in the history of ever has the lack of efficacy of a mandate or a prescription been blamed on the people that haven't taken the mandate or prescription? It just doesn't. There's no science behind it
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I mean it's crazy when you see the government doing everything they can to force you to do something that common sense says do not do. In fact, that's the one thing that's been
Mhm.
missing from this whole COVID debate over the last 2 years has been common sense. You're not hearing the government nor any, Fauci or anybody talking about natural immunity or herd immunity. You never hear them
No,
talk about that. Yet every virologist that's out there
no.
saying you got to let herd immunity take a chance. I mean, our immune systems are pretty fantastic. And as you grow those natural
Yeah.
antibodies, if you get sick and you pull through and you have those antibodies, what does that do? That duplicates, and you have more and more people that become
Mhm.
immune from this virus,
Yeah.
and it lessens the strength of this virus overall. And so, that's just not spoken about. And the drugs that actually do work, like ivermectin, like hydroxychloroquine, like zinc, like vitamin D, just basic stuff to be doing. They're not talking about that either.
No, that's horse dewormer. That's horse dewormer and black magic, John. You can't
Well,
talk
I don't
about
know. I've
that.
met some people that I'm pretty sure have worms, Carl. But I could be wrong.
I mean,
I mean,
but
we
that's
are dealing with
crazy.
a
It's
bunch
like
of parasites, aren't
it's
we?
perfect.
So
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's 400 and something of them sitting up on Capitol. Actually, there's
that's
535
right.
of them sitting up on Capitol Hill. But the problem is this was never about health. This was always
100%.
about control. And anybody with half
Yeah.
a brain can see that. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that we sit here in this bubble and are like, hey guys, like what is going on here? And time after time, and people still aren't seeing this stuff. And I'm like, I
There's
just don't
no
understand it.
common sense. 100%. It's always been about
Yeah.
control. How do we know that? Number one, they've controlled the narrative from day one. Social media, big tech, even the media itself, the mainstream media. They have done everything they can to control the narrative. And any outspoken voices, whether they're a group of doctors standing out front of the Capitol saying, no, this is not true, this is not true, they're immediately silenced and discredited. Look at Dr. Peter McCullough or Dr. Robert Malone. These are two
Right.
extremely reputable doctors. And now they're being
Not
painted as
rep-
kooks,
like they are the reputable doctor on this. Like one of them invented the technology for the vaccine that we're currently using. I mean, the other problem, John, from day one, there was never a metric
Yep.
to get back to normal. Like, what is the metric that you think? Like, what is the litmus test to say that we have done enough on this? We have succeeded. We have won. Because I'm going to make a bold prediction here on the State of the Union address. Joe Biden is going to come out and says, we have defeated COVID. And he's not saying because he actually did anything. He's going to say, with high vaccination rates, guess you didn't have anything to do with the vaccination or the vaccine. Donald Trump did that. Okay. So whether it works or not, if you want to claim victory on that, you got to give it to Donald Trump. Second off, then more people died under him than under Trump. And then the precious vaccine that he's claiming victory for was not there under Trump, and it is now. So he's going to claim victory on this, and not because he actually won, but because he needs to have a political victory going into the midterms, because the Democrats are going to get shellacked over this just absolute ridiculous. AOC going to Florida, Gretchen Whitmer going to Florida. All these places say Florida's full of Walking Dead basically because they're not masking up and all these men. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy to me.
It's kind of offensive calling that Florida is the Walking Dead. I mean, there are a lot of retired people there, but I don't think they're that close to being zombies yet.
Man, that's cold. Cold.
Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine that State of the Union. Biden gets up there, he's like, "Where am I, man? Hey, we beat COVID. Tacos for everybody."
Yeah.
I like tacos, man. That's why
what
we
am I
opened
doing
up the
here?
border. More tacos. We like tacos. Oh man.
Why am I here?
It's like, hey Jill, what am I doing here? Oh yeah. You're not Jill.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Chuck Schumer. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the other news that came out today was the new inflation numbers came up, and much to our chagrin and surprise, inflation's still going up. We're at 7.5%. So how do you destroy an economy? With rampant spending and no checks, meaning there's no checks to that spending. And what happens? We're going to be the Weimar Republic before we know it, man. We're just going to have wheelbarrows full of cash, worthless cash to go buy our tacos, man. To celebrate the beating COVID.
Well, by the same standard, which is actually kind of baffling to me. So by the same standard that Joe Biden basically said, if we didn't pass Build Back Better, we were going to crater. Okay, and the economy was going to go to hell in a handbasket. And that was like a week before the new jobs report came out, where he turned around and was like, see, everything I've done has been great for jobs. It's like, no, you can't shut down the economy, cost 9.8 million jobs. That's a net loss of 9.8, and then claim the 6.5% or 6.2% or whatever it was million that came, or 6.2 million jobs that came back, with a 2.7 million jobs net loss from when we shut down the economy, as, or not we, but the government did. And then say, like, look at how great I am. No, you just took the big boot of government off the neck of the economy, and they naturally bounce back because people need jobs to survive. And then it literally everything he does, he's like, if we don't pass Build Back Better, jobs are going to get crushed. Great, jobs came back. Hey, look at how great a job I did. Jobs came back. It's like this guy, everything this guy touches, just absolutely burns and flushes
I mean,
the
I do
ashes
have to
down the
give them
toilet.
credit, though. It's Jen Psaki, Peppermint Patty getting up there. I have to give them
For
credit
what?
because they are just so positive with things. I mean, they could be looking at a house that is literally burning to the ground, saying, "This is a real beautiful house." you know,
No,
I,
they literally did that. CNN stood in front of a burning building and said it's mostly
oh
peaceful.
my gosh, yeah. I mean, they're so positive, and they got that going for them. I mean,
Yeah.
Fantasyland must be great. But yeah, I mean, it's scary to think where things are going. I mean, now the Fed's going to be raising the interest rates as they have to because
Mm-hmm.
we've been addicted to cheap money for 15 years. Actually, not even that long. 13 years since 2008, where
Yeah.
everything went to hell in a handbasket, and so the Fed had to step in. Did the forced bailouts to all the banks, and but now the Fed's going to have to raise interest rates, and what effect is that going to have? Well, it's definitely going to affect the housing market, which is still on fire right now. At least it is here in Arizona. Where what's that?
Not so much in Connecticut.
Yeah, no one wants to move there. But like you go to Texas, Arizona, Utah, some of these free states that are even Florida, that when you raise the interest rates, well, that's going to affect the ability for people to buy homes now because interest rates right now are in the high 3, low 4s. But you bump that up, that'll be 5 to 7s. So
Yeah, I think you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, just do it.
you have
Raise
to.
them, and don't do it by like a 0.25%.
But
Do it to what we need to normalize the economy. Do it to like 1-2%, maybe even 3%, and just let it reset. Rip the Band-Aid off. It's going to suck for like 2 quarters, and it's going to bounce.
Well, it's just like if you're a doctor and you're in the ER and someone's coming in and they're bleeding out, you don't clip their toenails and totally ignore the blown out artery that you need to clamp off. Like, hey, you know what, boy, that guy's toenails are really bad. We should probably clip those toenails before we address this artery.
Do
That we
surgery,
our
yeah.
our economy, our government is spending money like it's bleeding out, and they're doing absolutely nothing to stop that bleeding. And so you've got the quantitative easing that's been happening for over a decade, just printed more and more
Mm-hmm.
money, and then now we finally have the interest rates going back up.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but this is all what they wanted. This is all part of the great reset that they've been praying for the last two decades. Um,
Yeah.
be interesting to see what happens, but we got a lot of cool stuff happening here with FreeSpace, and Carl, you've been a great advocate for us on Newsmax, and we got a lot of cool things happening with the platform here shortly. In fact, Newsmax just officially joined
Yeah, dude.
FreeSpace a few weeks ago, so we're excited to have your network on here. Why don't you tell us about your coffee brand that you've launched?
Oh, so I got Right Wing Brew. It's been out for a little while. It started as a gag gift, and people just started buying it. And so we ended up expanding. We just came out with a dark roast. So we have medium roast and dark roast. Light roast is really not my thing. So it's rightwingbrew.com, and go there, check it out. It's actually, we spent a lot of time on really good coffee.
Start your day with a little caffeinated freedom. So
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. Well, Carl, I know you got to run, but thank you so much for joining us today. And you know, everyone that's watching the show right now, make sure you tune in to Carl on the weekends.
7 a.m. Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and that's a new show, right? That you guys just got.
Yeah, new show. That's actually, I think this is actually the first platform I've officially said that I am the host on.
Look at you, big show.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one of these days I'll have to make it up to New York and I'll sit on the couch with you guys. If you guys will ever have
Anytime,
me.
brother.
That'd be fun. I'll have to work out first, get rid of my Mexican food gut that I got going right now. So, but
Insulation.
That's right. I'm just trying to stay warm in this 80-degree weather outside. But Carl, thanks
Yeah,
again,
man.
buddy. Good to see you, and we'll talk to you soon.
John, thanks so much, dude.